Hello and welcome to the Cricketers Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Tim Williams. We are here to recap the week that was in the world of cricket. Another successful one for the Australian cricket team. Some dominance as well from the Indians against the English. Plenty going on in world cricket. Here to talk through it with me, as always, Cricket Australia commentator Max Bryden. Maxie, how are you, mate?
G'day, Tim. Doing well, mate. It feels like that the Aussie summer may have finally ended. Especially for Test cricket fans, but like still, you look around the corner. We've got ODIs starting today. We've got the Champions Trophy next week. I know some people aren't necessarily as captivated by that tournament at the moment, particularly with a couple of Aussie big names coming out there. But, mate, I think it's going to be awesome. May well keep it going, particularly until these winter codes finally grip hold of a lot of Aussie fans.
Yeah, that's it. It does feel like that summer of cricket in Australia is finally over, despite the Test obviously being over in Sri Lanka. And that's it, the Champions Trophy. But as an Aussie cricket fan, I want to hold bloody everything. And I think that's another we need to add to our mantle.
Let's get greedy.
My next guest for today's show, Bucket Stats Guy. Why Buckets, you say? Because pre-show today, and Maxie doesn't know this, but Rando's dropped his coffee, heading towards his laptop. He's grabbed it, and Matty, the water boy, our producer, he'll tune into the show. Come on, he'll be on screen soon enough, don't you worry. Matty, the water boy, said, Buckets, like good hands there, mate. You caught it. And Rando says, nah, I caught it, squeezed it, and coffee went all through the laptop.
Oh.
Rando, the laptop is working so far.
Yep. It's like but what are you seeing on it? Like the Word document is kind of like those old scripts that you got back in the 1800s, the gold rush era. That's what we're seeing right now. But yeah, I thought I had the quick hands, but squeezed it like a Powerade straight all over the screen. So not a good start there, but so glad to see the Aussies doing a much better job than I am doing right now. It's been great to see more cricket on the screen. India and England have been keeping me entertained at night. That's been fantastic, but really keen for the ODI series and, as you mentioned, the upcoming Champions Trophy.
How's the disloyalty there, the Powerade shout out, and you've clearly got a Gatorade bottle sitting next to you.
You can't see that, actually. The viewers can't see. That could be any bottle.
Guys, if you're tuning into today's show on YouTube, like, subscribe to the channel, do all that good stuff. We'll be here throughout the Champions Trophy, into the IPL, all that good stuff leading forward with plenty to talk about. Of course, on today's show, though, the Australia vs Sri Lanka recap. Alex Carey's defining knock, a big 150 there, and there's a bit of controversy over the selection of Cooper Connolly, his debut, raising the question, is it getting easier to earn a baggy green for the Australians? The World Test Championships, essentially there are 3 spots and there are 7 contenders in that batting lineup and all-rounders. So we're going to have a look at those contenders and who we would be picking in that side for the Test at Lords later in the year against South Africa. The Champions Trophy, Bumrah is out for the Indians. Rohit Sharma, though, back in form with a century against England. Should the Indians be favoured for that one? Randa's got a bit of cricketing trivia for us. Then we'll wrap it up with the World Team of the Week. We'll start off with the Australia vs Sri Lanka series. Great from an Australian perspective, disappointing from a cricket perspective. I had high hopes that this was going to be a pretty tight contest. I think going into the series, Sri Lanka were 4th in the World Test Championship standings, not far off India. They could have jumped them with a win and a draw, whatever it might have been. The second test, Australia wiped them by 9 wickets. Very, very comprehensive. Matty Kuhneman, 7 wickets for the match, probably putting his hand up to certainly be Nathan Lyon's successor as it stands. As I said, Alex Carey, 156, another century for player of the series, Steve Smith with 131 runs. And not to be a negative Nelly, but we're going to start off on a slightly negative note, Maxie, and that is around Cooper Connolly. I wasn't thrilled about the selection going into the Test match. He ended up bowling 5 overs for the match, went wicketless. He batted at number 8, failed in his knock, which is all fine. You don't have to star on debut. The question was that he got picked based off 5 first-class games, 5 Sheffield Shield games in Australia where he'd had some success. It's just not much. So it begs sort of the question there, and there are a few other changing spots in this side. Controversially, Sam Constas missed out. Is it easier to earn a baggy green these days? Was it the right selection around Cooper Connolly? How did you see it?
Yeah, look, I know that there are a lot of people out there who will feel like you do at the moment, Tim, which is that, we've got this sacred beacon of safety and hope that is the baggy green that only a few are able to earn in their careers. But to be honest, I didn't mind it, and I didn't mind it for a couple of reasons. Now, first and foremost, I feel like it was really a conditions-based selection, and I feel that the Australian cricket team have come out since and said that they probably got that assessment of the conditions wrong. They really valued having an extra batter in their side, and they really valued having an extra all-rounder who bowls spin, and in particular, given how much success we saw from Matt Kuhnemann, just that left-arm orthodox spin, square seam, challenging the front pad, it's just absolutely gold in these conditions. I think at the end of the day, yes, did his numbers necessarily justify a selection? Maybe not, but I feel that this was a really good opportunity in a tour that, within the context of having won the trophy, within the context of having already qualified for the World Test final, I'm fine for someone of such promise as Cooper Connolly has presented so far in his career to get that opportunity to be around the squad, to feel what Test cricket's like, to get an idea of the shapes, the sounds of what this Australian team is like when it's absolutely humming, and get a go. And look, I think it was probably a little bit disappointing, not so much his batting, because when he did come out to bat, the ball was new and there was a big collapse for Australia in that first innings. So it wasn't necessarily he being the only batsman who failed. It was probably more so I would have loved to see a few more overs from him, but I think it's fine. This is a guy that Australians are going to see a lot, play a lot of Test cricket in the next decade and potentially more because of his potential. So no, I was pretty comfortable with it.
Fair enough, mate. And that's the thing. If it was... the selection was based on, consolidating that batting order a little bit. The wicket was predicted to turn a lot more than it probably did, and it was just the fact that he bowled the 5 overs. And I'm sitting there going, like you've said, this is a bloke who's going to play a lot of Test cricket. He might, but he also very well may not. Like, we haven't seen that much. He's shown promise, but it was for Sam Consis, who I think we're more assured that he will be a staple of this Test side for many, many years to come. And I thought maybe that there was a spot for him. Not taking away from Cooper Connolly, who, outstanding achievement to make his Test debut at such a young age. We know he's done at the Australian under-19s level. He's been a star in the Big Bash. Limited time in the Shield has been fantastic. But, yeah, Sammy Consis was one. I'm just like, get him some subcontinent experience. Rando, how do you feel, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I came on last week and was talking about how much I wanted Sam Consis to stay in Sri Lanka and get that spot. So I was shocked when not only was he sent home, but Cooper Connolly was given the chance to bat. Obviously, Minus got another chance and unfortunately failed again, adding more pressure. But I hope that the selectors know that they got the decision wrong, because I feel sorry for Todd Murphy, who probably would have had a field day on that wicket as well. I mean, Cooper Connolly bowling 30 balls, going for 21 runs, which is pretty consistent because his economy rate is the exact same in first-class cricket, 4.20. So that's pretty funky. But I know he's done really well in first-class cricket, 350s in 7 innings, but just a bit too early, I think, for Cooper Connolly. Great experience to have him on the squad. Didn't have any dramas about him going over there in the first place, but Sammy Constance is the guy for the World Test Championship, and I'm very surprised that they sent him home and played Connolly in the end.
I'm just looking at not only the Test Championship, fantastic for that, but realistically the wicket on the subcontinent in Sri Lanka so different to what we'll see at Lords. So it's not so much that. Firstly, more experience in the Test arena for Consis. It's going to help regardless of decks, but even just subcontinent in the future, I think it all helps for Sammy Consis. Maxi, what Australia have done for a long, long time and been so successful with has been, this sort of pick and stick mentality. You really have to earn the baggy green, and it's worked for a long time, not necessarily as much overseas. We saw certainly some chopping and changing this series, and at the end of the day, it's hard to argue with results. And Australia are extremely dominant. Whether Cooper Connolly worked out or not, or Todd Murphy, or a few of these sort of different decisions, what do you think? Do you think Australia, it is becoming a bit too easy to get a baggy green and they need to go the more old school mentality of pick and stick? Or do you think, pick into these conditions is the way to go moving forward?
I think you've touched on what the big argument here about Cooper Connolly, about even Sam Consis and Nathan McSweeney before him, which is that for a very long time, Australian cricket fans, we have built a culture on stability. We spoke about it last week. In many circles, it's actually harder to get out of the Australian Test team than it is to get in. And I mean, Marnus Labuschagne is a fantastic example of this guy, right? This is a guy who for years has been, off the boil, but we persist with him. What I loved about this team that went to Sri Lanka, and what I've loved about this particular selection panel at the moment is that they're leaning so much more heavily into this notion that we need to pick the right guys in the right conditions and not just fall in love with the toys that we've got in the Australian 11 when they're turning up in Australia, right? Like, there is so much difference between what they were shown at Gaul and what they were playing out in that last Test match in Australia at the SCG. And again, there is so much difference when you get to Lords for the World Test Championship final. I think it makes Australians just that little bit uncomfortable when there is that change and stuff like that. But you've only got to look at not just Cooper Connolly, not just Todd Murphy, but the other names who weren't in this Australian Test side, and you can start to see the argument, right? Because right alongside Todd Murphy on the bench after game one, we still had no Pat Cummins. We still had no Scott Boland, who, what's his bowling average, about 17 or something like that for his career, and he can't make this side when it's in Sri Lanka. I feel like this is what Test cricket has become. It's become a sport where conditions in your home country are really different and they're really unique and there are different challenges. And I think it's a credit to the Australian Test team, and not enough people are talking about this, that we had the skill, we had the application, we had the players who could go over into foreign conditions in Sri Lanka and not only win, but dominate. It just speaks to the resurgence of this side and the mentality in the last 10 years that we've figured out how to go into subcontinent and score big runs and take lots of wickets and take them quickly. You got the guys like Matt Kuhneman, who when he was originally picked for India, he was coming out of essentially the second 11 for Queensland. Yeah. This is a spinner in Tasmania where it doesn't spin. And this guy is still able to go over in these conditions that he hasn't played in since last India and absolutely dominate. So I think that stuff like this is going to become the norm, where we get these guys with unique skill sets as specialists who make fans a little bit uncomfortable. But, it's all about horses for courses, and that's why I'm really comfortable with Cooper.
Yeah. And my initial take was that I was quite annoyed with it, and look, I will stand by I don't think Cooper Connolly was the right decision, but I am leaning towards, and you are turning me around on that, pick to the conditions, because we haven't had great success on the subcontinent more often than not over the last 10 to 20 years with some pretty dominant sides. So, you don't pick the same Test team as you do T20 side or one-day team. It's like you chop and you change and you pick to the conditions. So I think it makes sense, and, at the end of the day, results going to dictate the public's opinion. And if we lost 2-0 in Sri Lanka and we had all these changes, the knives would be out. It'd be a very different conversation. But we didn't. We won both very comprehensively. So as it stands, it's hard to argue. And I can't wait for another tour of India where, maybe we do change our selections based on conditions a little bit more. Obviously, we always have to a degree, but substantially more so.
I'll give you one more, Timmy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is almost going to become like the Cameron Bancroft rule, right? And what I mean by that is, at the start of this Test summer, we needed an opener. And everyone, for all their money, would have said that the next guy, once David Warner retired, who'd been dominating cricket for years at Sheffield Shield level as an opener, was Cameron Bancroft. He was the anointed one, and smart judges were saying that he had to be the opener. But, of course, you sort of forget this now because it feels like it was 10 years ago. But before the India series, his form just went completely out the window to the point where he was usurped and he got jumped by Nathan McSweeney, who wasn't even an opener, right? So not only do we have to pick for guys who can play in the right conditions, but you've got to pick guys in form. And I feel that, as much as you can't make a necessarily comparison between the Big Bash League and Test cricket, Cooper Connolly was a guy who showed this summer consistently that he was able to stand up for the Perth Scorchers in pressure environments in the batting. He could do it with both skills, with his batting and his bowling, and he was a good player in good form. Bo Webster's another guy. He's been dominating Shield for a couple of years. He's in good form, and that really showed when he came into this Australian Test cricket team that he was ready. Josh Inglis, another guy, fantastic form. He's done it for Australia in white ball cricket, and when he came in, he was ready to dominate. So it's not even so much just picking guys, but you've also got to pick the right guys in form. And I think Connolly was in good form from the summer that he's had so far, and some of these other guys as well. So I think that's another thing that Australians have to get comfortable with, is that, I feel like Marnus is probably the only guy who's not in form who keeps his job, but that's something we have to get used to.
And that's it. And I mean, without digressing sort of too much from the point, but form, but it's players getting runs under pressure, and they don't necessarily have to be massive games. But you look at Bancroft, who looked the one. He got runs early in the Australian summer in the Shield, but then there was about 1 or 2 or 3 sort of Shield games and shorter form games before the selections were made for the Australian summer, and he didn't get runs. That's when the pressure was on, and he didn't get it. So, point taken, Maxi. That leads us into the World Test Championship, which we've been speaking a lot about in recent episodes because there's been so much debate over positions, and the Sri Lankan series probably hasn't helped these decisions. Locked into the batting order in particular, we've got Smith, Khawaja, Head and Carey. It basically leaves 3 spots. Those 3 spots are down to Sammy Constant, Nathan McSweeney, Marnus Labuschagne, Cameron Green, Josh Inglis, Beau Webster, Curtis Patterson. We look at Marnus, who's averaged 31 runs since 2023. He's had 1 century in that time. Sammy Constant left Sri Lanka early, went back to the Shield for New South Wales. He failed in both his innings there, as did Curtis Patterson. You speak about, I just mentioned Cameron Bancroft. It's like, all right, didn't get runs when it mattered, when selections were being made. Curtis Patterson now, like the pressure was on. Here's your chance, Curtis. Go and get another ton in Shield. Give them no choice but to pick you for the World Test Championship. Failed twice when the pressure was on. I'll start with you, Maxie, and then we'll throw to Rando. But, you know, of this list of 7 that I read out, you've obviously got to have an all-rounder in there. There's a debate that maybe you go Green and Webster. We've seen, you know, the talk that Sammy Constant has to be there. That conversation's changed very quickly. Josh Inglis has hit a ton in Sri Lanka. Mate, who are you feeling with those 3 spots?
Mate, it's going to be tough. And I feel like I've got ideas of who I want to take, but just on the Bancroft point again, like we're going to have to take guys over there who are in good form, which is why I think like Marnus could genuinely be in trouble. Now, having said that, this is a guy, Marnus, who made his name when he came in as a concussion sub into the Ashes, 4-5 years ago now. So he's got a little bit of form in English conditions, but Cameron Green, last time he was playing Test cricket for Australia, he was scoring 170 in New Zealand and boshing it around everywhere. And this guy takes wickets for fun. He bowls good seam. He can take poles over there too. So I really like him.
You love Cameron Green.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
takes wickets for fun. You love this bloke.
Well, mate, there's not too many people who can come in on Sheffield Shield debut and take 5 for with a ball and then get selected in the Australian Test team as a batter.
When you are infatuated with a cricketer, you are just all in on him. Shout out Ben Dwarshes.
Yeah, no, I love him. But look, no, me and Cam Green as well. We're brothers in the 2 metre club, so we gotta hang out together. I also think that I really love the game of Beau Webster, and I feel like he's had a few seasons over there playing in English conditions as well, and I feel like his game's going to be really suited over there. So I like the tall timber. I like the big boppers that we can throw into the gully and the slips as well, and hang on to their chances. Constance, I think, has definitely got a huge future in Australian Test cricket, and no one can deny that, right? But I'm not necessarily sure he's locked in. But the guy who I don't mind and I really want to see stand up, if possible, is McSweeney. Now, McSweeney, over the last couple of years, has scored some really good runs for Australia, and I think people are probably a little bit biased because he got completely bumrah'd this Test summer, playing an unfamiliar role up the top of the order. But this is a guy who scores his runs at 3 and for 4, playing for South Australia. So if there is a middle order role, I wouldn't mind seeing him fit in there.
So you've got Webster, you've got Green. Who's your other one? Who are you throwing in?
I think
gun to head right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take McSweeney, and I think I probably would drop Marnus Labuschagne unless he can really start to show some change. But I'd be very interested to see what McSweeney can do. The tough predicament I'll put myself in right there is I'm not sure who's going to open the batting. And I saw Adam Gilchrist come out yesterday and say that he thinks that Marnus can open the batting in this in the World Test Championship as well. Which again, let's make it harder for him, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's throw him in there against a swinging ball, not just the one that's Bumrah coming in at his front pad just trying to knock him over. So I don't know who's going to open. I feel like opener's going to be on a hiding for nothing over there against the Dukes, against a pretty red-hot South African batting lineup. But, I wouldn't mind one of McSweeney and or maybe Constance having that role. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, man, I'm already slipping already. Maybe
I know. He's on the edge. It's tough. There's so little between these players. Rando, how do you see it, mate? Who are you picking?
I think first and foremost, Cam Green. I mentioned he's definitely one of the informed players. It was such an unfortunate timing for his injury because I reckon he would have been red hot against the Indians.
Is he going to get... He's not going to get any Shield cricket in, is he?
He'll probably get some
last
English.
game. Yeah. He's looking like he's going to be fit for the final Shield game of the season for WA.
That's huge. He needs to play in that for me. If he doesn't play in that, I'm not picking him.
He's also got County and he's also got the Windies as well up and coming too. Beau Webster, his record in England speaks for itself. Great County record. I mentioned before he was a leading run scorer and leading wicket taker for Gloucestershire in that county cricket system. But for me, Marnus I feel like might get the spot, but I'm looking at Matty Renshaw recently, and this is not just because he scored 125. That definitely helps. It's his second century in Shield cricket. If we're going off Big Bash form like we did for Cooper Connolly, then he's been pretty good in the Big Bash as well.
We all know Big Bash form translates to Lord's Test pretty well.
100%. Very well. Very well. Subcontinent at least. But yeah, I think if they are seriously taking any form of domestic cricket seriously, Matt Renshaw is definitely, I think, usurp maybe Nathan McSweeney. He's probably just behind Sam Constas on that list, but I reckon he could be a possible smoky heading into this Test series. He hasn't played Test cricket over in England. He's only been used for subcontinent conditions, so his overseas average is pretty low. Last Test match was in 2023. Obviously peaked in 2016, 2017 in his early 20s, but he could potentially be an option here for Australia to look into. A left field one away from those current names. I think hopefully over Curtis Patterson at least. I think he's should be in that list of players.
So you're thinking, mate, Webster, Green, and potentially a little smoky in Matty Renshaw.
Yeah, if not, it'd probably be minus. I think they won't let down. If he got his spot in that Sri Lankan second Test, I just can't see them moving away.
A lot to play out. I think on what we've seen from Bo Webster and just how cool he was coming to that side against India, I think you're locking him in. I need to see a little bit from Cameron Green first. He's been out for a long time. If Bo Webster hadn't hit the scene so effectively, it'd be a different story. But, do we need another bowler over there? We're going to have a four-pronged attack, plus Bo Webster, some spinning options there as well. So I'm not convinced Green would bowl that much anyway with the injuries that he's had. So is he a straight batsman? Am I picking him as a straight batsman? Probably not. So I just think he's going to need to perform. He's not walking back into this team. He's got opportunities, as you said, the West Indies, certainly hopefully the last game of the Sheffield Shield season. So need to see something from Cam Green. And then I think it's just a hit out, isn't it, right? Constas, McSweeney, Marnus, Patterson, Renshaw.
The old bat off.
They're literally all these blokes. They're batting off in remaining Shield games, and whoever gets a chance against the West Indies, get runs, force us to pick you. Yeah. And who's going to stand up? So exciting. Boys, Champions Trophy. The Indians going into this as, probably favourites. Our question is, should they be favourites to win the Champions Trophy? Bumrah is out, which, to state the bleedingly obvious, is enormous for their credentials and their chance of winning it. Rohit Sharma is back to form with a century against England. In that series, they've won the T20s against England 3-0 and the ODIs 2-0. Dominant. Maxi, should they be favourites to win it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think that this is a side who is got so much adaptability and so many options just because of, firstly, they've got a lot of all-rounders in their side that they can really turn to for differing skills. But this is a side who plays as much white ball cricket as any team in the world. The IPL creates this amazing pressure environment for these guys to really thrive as well when it comes to tournament play. And just looking at the way that they've been dismantling this English side, right? Like, it's brought me great pleasure, but it's also just made me completely frightened as to how good this Indian team could be in this tournament. Even just if you look at the difference between the ODIs and the T20 series, they continue to unearth new players in the T20 format, which is fantastic. But I've really liked what I've seen in this series against England from the likes of Axar Patel, who's taken himself from a left-arm orthodox spinner and like a number 7 to now like India's number 5, and just delivering consistently with both bat and ball. Like, he is just the ultimate praying mantis with his long, rangy left-arm orthodox spinner. One of my favourite players to watch. The hard-hitting of Hardik Pandya down the order as well, bowling fast. He's got so many fantastic change-ups for white ball cricket. And even just seeing Mohammad Shami come back into form, like, this is a guy who, he's sort of like India's version of Josh Hazlewood in the sense that you look at him and you look at the way that he goes about his business and you think, like, how's his stuff really going to work in white ball cricket? But there is a role for a guy who has absolute perfect seam position, and there is a role for guys like him at the top of the order, swinging it around, nipping it around, and getting batsmen out in the power play and win games that way, and also cleaning up and just bowling unhittable death overs. So he's a fantastic cricketer to come back into this side. So they just have all their bases covered. So I think other teams should be scared.
Yep, all fair, mate. You mentioned how enjoyable it is watching India towel up England there. It's funny how quickly things go from how much we love beating India to like, just beat England for us. I love the quote from Ben Duckett. This is a massive series, but the Champions Trophy is the big competition. If we lose 3-0 to India, I don't care as long as we beat them in the final in the Champions Trophy. No one will probably look back on this series if we go and do the business in that competition. He's right, for starters, but why say that? Like, if we get done 3-0, it doesn't matter because we'll fix it in the Champions Trophy. It's like, English just shouldn't do media at times. It's like you're just saying that you've just been wiped. It's about to be 6-0 potentially, and it doesn't matter. Like, why say that?
Well, mate, this is the home of the moral victory, right?
It's another one. It's like
even when they lose, they win.
You're about to beat a 6-0 in a row. Maybe it ages and it's only 2-1 in this series, but if we beat him in the Champions Trophy, it means nothing. Funnily enough, he's right. No one will remember this series in 5 years' time. They will remember the Champions Trophy, but just don't say it.
Yeah, and if you've been watching the games, the emotion on the English and the intent that they've been playing with does not seem like they're just willy-nillying around. But as you mentioned, Jasprit Bumrah, a massive out, but I think the Indian bowlers, as we talked about, Maxi, should be able to cover them. Jadeja, he's averaging 10 in this series at the moment. Unbelievable. 6 wickets. You got Mohammad Shami as well. 15.6 average in the last 12 months in ODIs. Much better than Bumrah. Bumrah is the second best bowler at an average of 20. But, you've got Shami there. 4 fifers in that last 12-month period, whereas Bumrah's best is just a 4-fer. So I think that India should still be set. Rohit Sharma, he's just came back to form out of nowhere. Everyone was thinking that when he came back to India, he might not even get a game, let alone still be captain. But he just knocked over the most hundreds by a 30-plus-year-old in ODIs. Wow. So see you later, Dilshan and Jaya Wardner. They no longer hold that record together. So I think that India are priming very well and should be favourites for this one.
Tough week for the Sri Lankans.
Speaking of priming, Dilshan, Jaya Wardner, Rando's trivia, hit us.
Let's
is that
go.
one of the questions?
No, unfortunately, it isn't. I wouldn't give that up that easily. Obviously, last week was a bit tough for you guys, so I thought I'd dial it down a notch.
No 1970s old Australian wicketkeeper questions.
No, not this week. Not this week. Let's start with the first one, and of course, we brought his name up. Cooper Connolly obviously made his Test debut after just 5 first-class matches. Which current Australian squad member made his debut playing less first-class matches than Cooper Connolly?
Pat Cummins.
Bang. This is tough. Didn't even breathe.
Mate, he was amazing too. Like, I still remember as an 18-year-old him going down to Tassie for the Sheffield Shield final, and he bowled like 50 or 60 overs. Almost broke his back, but he has been a world-class talent for so long. I love that stat. And mate, if Cooper can have half the career of Pat Cummins, it'll be justification for bailing in the selection committee. I'm still think it's a good call.
I remember when he had that infamous series over in South Africa. I was working at the Daily Telegraph at the time, and I did a big feature on Pat Cummins and why he can become the greatest ever. And I think in that series he was coming up against like Stain and Morkel and it might even Philan. It's unbelievable. And I was like, why he can do it. I remember just in the comments, granted this happened with every article that anyone wrote at the Daily Telegraph, just getting roasted. He's 18 or whatever. Why would he do this? Why is he going to be that good? Now I'm just like, I just feel like obliged to go back to that article and get in the comment section and get screw you all. I got one right. Rando,
it was
put me out of my pain.
3 first-class matches for Pat Cummins as well. For this one, Steve Smith, he brought up his 17th Test ton. He's only 2 behind Ricky Ponting as Test captain. Which player has the most Test tons as captain in the cricket world?
Oh, for any country?
Any country, the most Test tons.
Good question. Very good question.
Brian Lara?
No. Maddie?
I'm trying to
What about, Graham Smith?
I guess we got a playoff here. Maddie and Maxi.
Wow.
Yeah, very good.
I love how
he's got Google over there, I think.
Maddie hasn't actually featured on the Cricketers Playbook podcast as of yet. So the introduction to Maddie was just Graham Smith. So that's why Maddie will be on soon.
Well, I just know that he was the Test captain of South Africa at such a young age, and he was the captain for so many tests. So it was just
Touché, Matthew.
Well done,
25 Test tons. All right.
Well,
you
you've
guys.
actually given me an extra chance, so thank you.
Yeah, here's the extra chance for it to be a three-way tie.
right.
Nathan Lyon, 550 test wickets in Sri Lanka. Who are the other two Australian bowlers he joins on that list?
Sorry, what was the stat?
Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne.
You just said 550 test wickets in Sri Lanka. I'm like, I don't think he's got 550 there. So
Where he
got
the
it.
milestone,
He got where the
mate.
milestone.
So he was asking who was ahead of him on the list.
I thought it was a question of wickets in Sri Lanka. Granted, I would have been as quick as you anyway, but
A lot of excuses from you this week.
well, that was an
Very
easy
low
question
cut.
if the bloke asking the questions was. Well,
Maxie seemed to get it.
yeah, well, Maxie thinks like you. He's a bit dyslexic. Boys, let's get to enough of this trivia crap. I started on fire and that. I'm now just Maxie's gone home, just in all his spare time, looking after his child, and his babu's not moved around. He's just studying cricket and going, I need to catch up to Tim. And, well, you have, emphatically.
I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah. Guys, part 2, World Team of the Week. We scour the world in cricket to find the best individual performances, both international and domestic, to pick our World Team of the Week. Once named, we vote in our 3, 2, 1 for the standout performances, with the points going towards the race for the mace to decide the dominant country. To avoid any bias, which has been none of, I don't think. No bias at all. Aussie domestic performances, they've got to be absolute standouts to get the points. Now, let's start off. We need a couple of openers, 4 middle order bats and 4 and bowling unit as well. We'll start with you, Maxie. Who have you found in the opening slot?
Yeah, a couple of openers, some really good performances in the Sheffield Shield. Jake Weatherall scored 155 for Tasmania against Victoria. And Matt Renshaw, 125 not out for Queensland against New South Wales in a big win at the Gabba. So a couple of good Aussie boys doing their thing.
Very nice. I forgot to say, Rando had the combination of the SA20 tournament in South Africa. Maxie had Australia versus Sri Lanka second test, South Africa versus New Zealand ODI, New Zealand versus Pakistan ODI, and 3 Sheffield Shield fixtures. I had 5 games from the ILT tournament and the England versus India ODIs. Rando openers, what did you find?
For me, just the one, Tony DeZorzi, 78 off 49 for Eastern Cape against the Royals. It was in a qualifier and they were chasing 176 as well. He comes out opening the batting and destroys the Royals.
Very nice. For myself, the Englishman Alex Hales, the veteran for the Desert Vipers, in a couple of qualifiers in the ILT, 67 off 32 opening the bat, and he also had 47 off 29. And then, of course, Rohit Sharma, 119 off 90 balls for India. Our openers for the week, boys, we had Rohit Sharma and Matthew Brisky.
I forgot to mention him.
I was going to say, I was like, please speak to us.
Well, he was out there opening the batting for South Africa against New Zealand in this amazing try series that they're happening with Pakistan. Scored 150 from 148, which was pretty good in a losing knock.
Apparently not good enough to get a nomination from you, Maxie.
Well, he got the nomination and he's in the team of the week. So, sorry, Matt.
Boys, our middle order, who have you found, Maxie?
Middle order. So there's
You're
a few
stacked.
here. I am absolutely. So firstly, Steve Smith, man in the series where he's 131. Kane Williamson in this try series, 133 not out off only 113 deliveries. Carried his bat. A good player of the of the match award, and the Kiwis did really well in both of their games so far in this try series. Glenn Phillips, he was man of the match in the first game for his 106 not out off 74 deliveries. And a couple of guys in the Shield, a couple of Jacks actually. First one, Jack Clayton from Queensland. He scored 108 and then 76 before he retired hurt in that big win against New South Wales. And Jack Edwards, my man, 108 he scored for New South Wales. What was remarkable about this innings is he came in with a score about 5 for 39, I think, in that first inning. So batting at number 7, he's bowling, he's taking wickets, and he's scoring tons as well. So continuing a really solid summer for Jack Edwards.
Yeah, Jack Edwards, phenomenal, and 108 and 53 in that match as well, and a couple of wickets to go with it. Rando.
For me, we had Ruben Herman here for the Royals, 81 off 53 balls. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get the job done in that qualifier. And the last player, Aidan Markham, the captain of Eastern Cape, 62 off 40 in the eliminator, guided his team to a match-winning score of 184 in that game, and he was batting at 6-2.
Oh, look out. For myself, Gulbuddin Nab, the Afghani for the Dubai Capitals, 2 great knocks. One was 55 off 31. The second one, this was in a qualifier or a knockout game, 62 off 39. and 2 for 25 and 3 catches. How's that for an all-round performance in a big game? Liam Livingston, 41 off 32, run out and 1 for 29 off his 7 overs. That was for England. A terrific performance all-round there. Maxie Holden for the Desert Vipers in the final of the ILT tournament, 76 off 51. Sammy Curran in the same game, 62 not out off 33, which is a tremendous knock. Boys, our middle order for the week: Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Glenn Phillips and Gulbadine Nab. Wicket keeper, Maxie, you'll take some beating here, I reckon.
Yeah, I had pleasure to own this one this week. Alex Carey, 156, and I think he was player of the match in that second game. Regardless if he walked away with that award or not, he has etched his name into history with the highest score by an Australian wicketkeeper batting in Asian conditions. So I think Adam Gilchrist had slots 1 through 5 basically sewn up before this test, but he was fantastic and a worthy nomination this week.
He was absolutely man of the match in that game. Rando?
No wicket keepers of note in the T20.
Been a poor few months for wicket keepers, I must say. Outside of Carey and Inglis in the last 2 tests. For myself, not much. Sam Billings, 38 off 16 for the Dubai Capitals, and he was run out in that one. So, shock, Alex Carey, straight in. Bowling lineup, Maxi.
A couple of guys here from the Shield. First one, Kieran Elliott. He's basically like a mature age debutant down there for the Tassie team in there, and he got 10 for 39 for the match against the Victorians. Amazing game down there. Tassie won by 20 runs against Victoria, and basically Victoria lost 3 for 5 to end that game basically late on day 4. So Tassie doing some really, really good things in domestic cricket this year. And the next guy, Nathan McAndrew, playing for South Australia against WA at the Wacker ground. This one was barely believable, but this entire match was over after, I think, 5 sessions, which was essentially I think it was the shortest Sheffield Shield game ever recorded in Australia. If not, it was definitely top 3. And in the second innings, WA were bowled out for just 66, and Nathan McAndrew, the big quick from Bankstown in Sydney, took 7 for 11, which was absolutely remarkable. I think he could barely believe it. But it was, crazy game, and great effort by McAndrew.
Yeah, you don't need to rewind. 7 for 11. Unbelievable. Rando?
For me, 2 bowlers for Eastern Cape. Kagisa Rabada, 4 for 25 off 3.4 overs in the final. But he wasn't the player of the match. That went to Trent Boult. 2 for 9 off 4 overs. An economy rate of 2.25. Quite incredible.
Trent Boult. The man. If you can find a sportsman across the entire world who plays with a better spirit than that man, I'd love to meet them because I love Trent Boult. Boys, for me, Case Ahmed, the Afghani for the Dubai Capitals, 4 for 25 off 4 overs, but it was Ravi Jadeja twice. 2 phenomenal performances against England. The first one, this was in a total of 304 from England. He had 3 for 35 off 10, and he had 11 not out off 7 to get them home chasing that total. And then the other fixture, 3 for 26 off 9, and he had 12 not out off 10 to also get them home in that one, not chasing his bigger total. Phenomenal performance. So, boys, our bowling lineup, Jadeja, McAndrew, Boult, and Rabada. Vote 3, 2, 1. Rando, what have you got?
I started with Kane Williamson, unbelievable performance across the board. Then Alex Carey, of course, usurping the great Adam Gilchrist for the highest score in Asia. And this one goes to Rohit Sharma. He's had a tough couple of months, and that was a massive century for the skipper there. Even though he's had plenty of tons in his 30s, that one was a big one heading into the Champions Trophy.
Yeah, fair. A big one for Rohit there. And I also like, Rando, you've learnt to build suspense, start from the bottom and build up to your 3 votes.
I've been doing some practice.
Maxi.
Nice. I just love Rando's man crush on Rohit. Knows no bounds.
It's budding.
Look, 1 point for me to big Jadu, Ravi Jadeja. Amazing all-round cricketer and guy who I think is going to have his fingerprints all over the Champions Trophy if India are to win. 2 points, Kane Williamson, really, really solid knock, and New Zealand looking really good heading into that tournament too. 3 points, I couldn't go past Alex Carey. I thought it was clearly his best knock in Test cricket, but a knock he's been threatening to have, I think, for basically the last 2 years. So I just feel super proud and excited for what he was able to do. So he gets my 3 points.
I went Kane Williamson 1, Alex Carey 2, and Ravi Jadeja for 2 incredible performances. 3, many a world team of the week. Sharma, Britsky, Williamson, Smith, Phillips, Nab, Carey, Jadeja, McAndrew, Bolt and Rabada. The race for the Mace. Alex Carey, 3 votes. Jadeja, 2 for India and 1 to New Zealand and Kane Williamson. Do note that I mentioned the Aussie bias there. Nathan McAndrew, 7 for 11. They are 3 votes every day of the week. He didn't get in our votes, so is there a bit of bias? Yeah, sure there is, but that was a good one from us. Boys, Australia lead the way. Jeez, they've really got out to a good lead here, 19 points. In India in second on 10, equal with, South Africa in third on 8, New Zealand on 6, England on 4, the Windies on 4, Pakis on 2, Afghanistan on 1. And as we said, boys, the Australian summer to come to an end. So I do think we'll see probably this table turned a little bit. The English are the ones I worry about heading into the county season and all of that. Boys, that'll do us for this week's episode of the Cricketers Playbook. Rando, yourself and I will be heading to the United States next week for the launch of the NRL season. We'll be away for about 12 days or so a week or two off the Cricketers Playbook podcast, but we'll be back to we'll be recapping the Champions Trophy, and that'll be getting stuck into the Indian Premier League. Maxi, I don't know what you're doing in the meantime, but thank you for everything, mate.
won't be on America, mate, but I will be sitting on the couch watching the Champions Trophy, so I'm really excited about that, mate. So, yeah, thanks, Timo. Thanks, Rando.
Rando, thanks, mate. See you in Vegas.
Oh, can't wait, mate. Can't wait.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. Said if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like it. If you disagree with anything we say, let us know in the comments. Let us have it. But thank you.